Amazon has been like the great ununionized white whale of the labor movement in America, and I think it's pretty self evident why, right? I mean, Amazon is just has become a total behemoth in the past, what, 10, 15 years, right? And especially with the pandemic, when going to brick and mortar stores became more hazardous, right? The e-commerce model of Amazon just took off. It was like Mother Nature just gave Amazon just like a fucking, like, put it on steroids, and the wealth of Jeff Bezos and the top execs at Amazon has just skyrocketed, while millions are struggling to keep a roof above their heads, let alone get access to healthcare. Again, you guys know this already. I just wanted to kind of make sure that we're giving a full picture here for anyone who's maybe a little out of the loop. So the stakes are really high, and all eyes right now are on Bessemer. The union ballots have already gone out. So workers will have till late March to vote on whether or not they want to join the union. We can expect and have already seen, right? Amazon does not want this to happen. Is the last thing they want to happen, and they're going to pull out all the fucking stops to keep it from happening. And which is why we need to stay vigilant. We need to continue to show support, however we can. And, I guess, Luis, why don't I kind of leave this side to you? Could you talk a little bit about kind of the things we have already seen Amazon doing to try to keep this vote from happening?
Yeah, I mean, I think Amazon has really thrown the whole kitchen sink of union busting at this effort, right? Including organizers told Kim Kelly, the labor journalist, that Amazon had changed the traffic lights. So organizers are stationed at the gates as workers are coming down to leave from the fulfillment center, and they distribute literature about the campaign. And Amazon, in order to prevent the workers as they're driving off from having like that respite, between the light changing from red to green, they actually alter the traffic lights, right? So that's one of the more egregious things that has happened in Bessemer in particular. But we've all seen that they have put anti-union messaging in bathroom stalls. They have held captive audience meetings where basically the union tells them things like, you can do this without dues. You don't need an interloper to come in and speak for you. And in addition to that, one of the things that I found the most shocking was that they hired through third-party contractors folks that were recently incarcerated and used them, according to, in the words of Michael Foster, Big Mike, as walking billboards for their anti-union campaign, pinning on them "vote no" pins, even though as third-party contractors, they're not part of the bargaining unit. So that's some of the stuff that Amazon has done. More recently, the New York Times and others have revealed that Amazon has also hired, try to use like its surveillance infrastructure to monitor like a heat map, for instance, of worker activity. So Amazon has these Facebook groups where workers chat. And in today's Sunday New York Times, I don't want to necessarily promote the New York Times, independent media. We need more independent media support. But this article does do, a good job at kind of a deep dive into what Amazon is doing and taking a look at California in particular, which is a point that I like to touch on. In addition to all the bad things, Amazon has done to prevent these folks from exercising their right to join a union. So some of this is like par for the course. I think what's a little different about this campaign, right, is that Amazon was kind of caught by surprise in some ways in terms of how successful it's been. So initially, this plant was supposed to be for 1,500 workers. It's now nearly 6,000 workers that we're talking about. So when there were efforts in Colorado, for instance, to unionize that shop, we were talking about like a very small election and a very small bargaining unit, not nearly close to 6,000, which is still a drop in the bucket considering that Amazon employs about 1.3 million workers in the United States, right? But it's
Right.
significant nonetheless. And the reason why it's also significant is that in Chicago, I'm sure your listeners have heard that the Amazonians United held a couple of actions early in the pandemic, and Amazon responded by shutting down the plant, the fulfillment center. Right? They cannot do that as easily in Alabama because it's part similar to how when you go to your local dealership, right? There's like a corridor. Usually, wherever there's a dealership, there are like hundreds of mechanics. There's a
Oh yeah.
hundreds of like that kind of concentration and coordination is something that companies like Amazon look for because it gives them like a strategic advantage to already have trucking, companies in that area they can eventually take over, and control, which is what they've done. They've just like a modern day Saturn, they've just devoured smaller companies to grow into this behemoth that they are today. So I think that there's more strategic importance to Alabama because of where they're positioned in the supply chain than let's say other places. So Amazon in Europe, my colleagues over at Labor Notes have written about this. Joel DeManuel Hall did a review of this book called The Cost of Free Shipping, Amazon in the Global Economy, where they looked at how in Europe, for instance, like when German workers wanted to go on strike, what Amazon would do is shift the production, over to Poland or other places that were not organized. So Amazon is very nimble in this way. So the point about the New York Times article and California is that California is a huge market for Amazon. I believe they employ about 40,000 workers, in the Empire Inland Valley, if that's the right way. What's the
In the Inland Empire.
There you go, the Inland Empire. So the Inland Empire and Tracy, California, you have the largest Amazon warehouses out there. And what happens in Bessemer in order to sustain it is going to be critical to organize not only California, but organize internationally. That's why I'm writing this piece for Labor Notes about what Italian workers are doing, because we're going to need international solidarity in order to defeat Amazon and make sure that workers there, have an opportunity to join a union.
Hell yeah, man. No, I think that's exactly right. And, I hope, right, for anyone listening, right, that as Luis put it, more beautifully than I ever could, right? Like all the kind of different strands that I think that we've covered on this show over the years, right? All the different points that other guests like Luis have kind of brought up. So many of them are coming together in this story, and you're seeing why we preach the gospel of international worker solidarity so much, right? Because you have this, I wrote it down because I love the way you put it, Luis, when you said Amazon, like a modern day Saturn, has kind of gobbled up all of these lesser gods and has become this massive and international entity. That gives it Amazon a huge edge. It would take hours for us to kind of describe how deep this goes, because however deep you think it goes, that's only the surface. That's what I can tell you, right? From all the different facilities that Amazon has around the world, from all the kind of strategic placement of those facilities, from all the surveillance that they do, not only in their warehouse, but Amazon is in the fucking business of surveillance, right? Amazon is working with the government. You don't want to know how bad this shit is, but it's also why, as I believe Hamilton Nolan in these times put it so well this weekend, Amazon is going to keep going in this direction. And by the time we realize how fucked we are, it is going to be too late. The only way that Amazon is going to change from this course that it is on is if workers unionize, right? And more workers unionize, and more workers in the U.S. are building kind of robust relations of solidarity with workers outside of the U.S., so that we, like, not just because it's a good thing to do, right? International solidarity is good and necessary, and I do think it is a virtue of sorts, but it's